This conference will now be recorded.
Well, I don't think we're going to have any other people here, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. We've got a quorum at least present, Randy Bollison, Lynn Sikorsky, and myself. And we have Teresa on the line, and hopefully Joe will be on the line and will eventually join us. And John Breggett said he would be here a little bit later. I entertain a motion to allow Teresa to vote.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Teresa, you're allowed in, even with one eye.
But you only get a half a vote.
Oh, come on.
Approval of the September 9th, 2021 minutes. Corrections? Not?
Seconded by Glenn.
Okay. First motion. All in favor?
Aye.
In favor, Teresa, well, one meeting behind on the minutes, is that right?
That's right. My dad passed away 2 weeks ago, and I've spent a lot of time up in Illinois, so I didn't have a chance to get them finished before I left.
Despite that. Okay, let's, I'm gonna shuffle the agenda just a little bit because I want to get to join the meeting as guests. But we'll start with financial report.
Well, I'm working on that consolidation. I'll have something for the next meeting. Okay? And we'll discuss that at that time to put the different sources of our financials together so we can have one. Secondly, I got an answer on the operating expense capital outlay boardwalk. Laura responded where we had that expenditure of $386,840, where we said it was being funded from capital reserves, and she responded that expenses for projects are not paid directly out of the reserve account. We set up a separate capital account to track the expenses for the boardwalk, and then the account is funded from your reserves. So it flows from one area to another. All right, but still, we got on your agenda, we have Stephen Blumon from Inframark. Appreciates, Stephen, your response to me and joining us. And you had sent us that revised budget with a couple of new columns in there. And when I saw it, I've been an accountant for a while, and I could see what you were getting to, but I thought we could give a more detailed explanation to our committee members, because I'll just start to say that I believe, Stephen, our revenue is 2.735 million. Our expenditures are 3.531 million. So there's a difference of 796,300, which I assume, are funding from the reserves. Am I correct?
I'm not sure about the amount that you're talking about, actuals or the budget, just so we're clear.
My suggestion would be here, before we get into the details of this particular thing, Stephen, if you could kind of outline for us how the process works. the establishment.
Sure.
And then the amendment to the budget. We really
Sure.
need how that's
Yeah.
done.
That's good. No, we'll
Yeah.
start at eight.
Can you go ahead and do that for us?
Absolutely. So we go through the budget process, and the end result is a resolution that the board passes that establishes a top or a total expenditure for the fund. And I say that because that's going to be important as we kind of move into the discussion of an amendment. So, for the sake of this discussion, I'm just going to round it to say, $2.7 million total expenditures. Now,
In the fall, when we went through a month or two ago, when we went through all this budget stuff, right?
well, the month or two, that was for fiscal year 2022, but the same process was followed for fiscal year 2021.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's okay. So, the key to that is that dollar amount, the 2.7. And again, now we start talking about Florida statutes. The Florida statutes say, you can't spend $1 more than that 2.7 without amending your budget. And you got to do it, by 60 days after fiscal year end. In other words, you got to go in front of you don't have to do it at that point, but by that deadline, you've got to go in front of the board, present your amendments, and make sure that you are not overspending past the approved appropriations for the year. And that's the core of why we do budget amendments. It's not the only reason why we do budget amendments. To get to some of the other questions, when we are amending different line items, back and forth, I don't consider that to be a true blue budget amendment. That's more of a budget modification. And those are coming to us from, Laura gets them from, I'm assuming, from the different members of the team, from PPAC, and however they do that. And they provide that to Infomark, and then we make those adjustments throughout the year in the annual budget. And, we do that throughout the year, but we always do that with the goal at the end of the day, at the end of the fiscal year, we're going to present that again back to the board, so that even though we're not changing that $2.7 million, it's not going up or down, we want that to be ratified of sorts. We want that on the record that those changes were ultimately approved by the board, even though they came from the committee and everyone has had them. So that's a subplot sort of to the true purpose of the budget amendment, which is always, again, really to make sure from a statutory standpoint that we are in good standing. Now, again, there are other smaller reasons, or not even smaller, bigger reasons why we do budget amendments. I mean, you can certainly do a budget amendment during the year if you've got a philosophical change in operations, or a huge change in a contract. There's a lot of different reasons to do a budget amendment. It doesn't have to be pinholed into, one or two things, but at the end of the day, and, and this is what when you talk to any of the auditors, they're going to ask you, and that's what they're going to check, did you, pass, did you go beyond what your total appropriations were that were approved by the board? And so, again, that's kind of the genesis of budget amendments, And so when we have large projects that are, not budgeted or anything, and you start talking about reserves and all that stuff, it all leads down to the end of the day, where are your total appropriations? Where are your total expenditures? And that was kind of, the main purpose for what we were doing here.
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead. No. My next piece, I was going to go into why I split the columns, but if you have any questions kind of up into that point, I'm happy to kind of go through those.
Kind of basic question. So the 2.7 million, let's take that as the starting point. We assessed to cover that 2.7 million. In other words, that determined our assessments. Is that right?
That was yes, that's the basis. We build a balanced budget. So if you're saying, You know, and it doesn't, you know, you mentioned assessments. It's really, and just kind of, we're talking terminology now. It's 2.7 in total revenue, because that's kind of how the resolution will even words it. It says, yeah, you're going to collect X amount, you know, basically to cover your expenditures. And I say that only because in most years, you know, we've been collecting the fire impact fees that have been helpful, you know, in your budget. And again, we did budget for that in 2021, but I think, as you guys have already pointed out, we didn't collect any for the year, which is first time I can think of in 2 or 3 years. But yeah, it's really, you know, it's the assessments, it's the fire impact fees, and then to a smaller extent, interest income.
Right, okay. And so that gives us the total that we budget. So when we overspend and we amend the budget, I mean, we've spent funds that weren't in our revenue forecast.
Mhm.
Do we get those funds come out of reserves? Is that where?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll be, you know, I don't want to complicate this too much, because theoretically it doesn't have to come from reserves. There could be other revenue sources that a fund could get, but, you know, 70, 80, 90% of the time when a fund, you know, for a district is short, it's going to come from reserves, because nobody wants to go through the process of, and I've seen it only once or twice in my career, you know, going out for another assessment in the middle of the year. You know, you theoretically could do it yourself. You wouldn't want to, but yes, you're going to get that from your reserves. And then, you know, that's going to be the bottom line to the budget amendment. If you don't have the revenue to support what you're amending, it's reserves.
So go ahead, continue on where you were headed.
Yeah, so, you know, it's, you know, you're a little bit unique in terms of the size of the fund and the different activities that is being tracked. And I say that's why I kind of split out the columns, both for your budget, and then really, it's really even more important for your actuals than it is your budget. I mean, from the budget standpoint, it doesn't matter which reserve, you know, it comes out of. You know, it's really, especially for you guys, it's very important which reserve it comes out of from the actuals. So, but we'll cover that in a second. So what I wanted to do is kind of show you know, the three main pieces that I see, you know, the kind of the general operations, what I'll call from one category, and then the ponds group has always been tracking, you know, their reserves separate as the second category. And then the third, which you mentioned a little bit earlier, your capital reserves. So I wanted to show from the budgetary standpoint, you know, how exactly that would fit into your reserve structure. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned that is important to note, when we do a budget amendment, it doesn't have to, and it won't align 100% with your spending for the year. And I have seen other districts do that, and even some municipalities try and do that. You know, they do a budget amendment and they just say, okay, I'm just going to amend it so that every actual matches. So at the end of the day, my budget and my actuals are the same. And I'm always very weary of doing that. And maybe in particular because of the nature of this particular fund. Because if you get invoices, you know, and today is what, November 10th. And we have actually seen this happen in your fund a couple of years ago, and we were just lucky because of the budget was large enough. You always want to have plenty of room in your budget, you know, for those last minute invoices, because you will, you know, accrue those back into 2021. So if we get, you know, whatever, I'll just throw it out, landscaping, not saying that we have one, but let's say we get a $50,000 landscaping bill, you know, that's related to services from fiscal year 2021. We are required to put that back into 2021, you know, as part of the audit process. So, you know, I just wanted to be, you know, I know probably one of the questions is, well, wait a minute, you know, when you did this budget amendment, you didn't match it up exactly with the actuals, because the actuals are way less. And really, was it about making sure there was plenty of room because there is no cap on a budget amendment and there is no requirement to make it, equal. It's just to make it reasonable and try and put in some of the lines. So that's kind of what we did when we split that out and put them in. Like for the boardwalk, we put in the full amount that was spent, maybe not for every line item. So there is certainly a subjective to that point, because it's really, again, to kind of repeat, it's about the total. But what's unique about this fund is all the different pieces with the reserve. And that's why it was even more important to take a look at the actuals, because that's really, at the end of the day, the committee is going to have to say, yes, I agree with, how you split those categories, because then we're going to adjust their reserves for year end. And, we've talked about this before, and we were really trying to make sure we were very clear, keeping ponds and keeping the capital reserve and obviously your operations being third, separate and in line with what everybody was, believing them to be. Obviously, with future meetings and future decisions will be dependent upon how much reserves you have available. So that was kind of why I created the second schedules for you, kind of as we get past the budget questions. Really wanted to make sure the committee was comfortable or had answered any questions as to where's the ponds going to be, where's the capital reserve going to be as we enter in, already entering in the beginning of fiscal year 2022.
So let me just, so we effectively, the final budget, we really, so far at least, have underspent that by $600,000.
Oh, yeah. And again, yes. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I just want to be clear, I do not see another $600,000 popping up anywhere. That was just, trying to, one, since that was a separate line and a clear line that had a zero budget, it was easy just to budget the full amount there. But no, that is not with the intention that there will be anywhere near matching. I mean, where you are right now, and that's why I was asking the earlier question. I mean, as of this report, when we were kind of putting this together, it was 236,000 rounded, was the amount that would need to come from reserve. And that's why the separate schedule then split that amount into the different categories, into the different reserve. And then in essence, when you looked at it, and that's where it became kind of interesting to see, when you split that out, those actuals, the only reserve that wasn't going to be actually increasing was your capital reserve. The other two, when you split it out, operations and ponds would actually have increases, assuming, there isn't something that's, we need to reclass or you guys feel needs to be moved into a different spot. So I thought it was a really good exercise to be able to see that split, so you can say, okay, well, what does that really mean to the different pieces?
Hey, Stephen, once all these numbers are finalized for 2021, there's always, you send a note that's, here's the carryover that goes into the 2022. Then is, in the past, it's always you just add it and spread it across the line items within your 2022 budget. That process is still the same, correct?
That's up. We don't automatically put it into any line items in the 2022 budget. It's going to be adjusted on your balance sheet in your, it's going to be there, but then we don't just automatically say we're going to put it here and there. That would be a little bit too arbitrary in general. Now we can, but normally it's at the direction of the committee as you look at your budgets, and activities and plans change. We then get the direction, well, we'd like to take 100,000 out of here or 50,000 out of here. That's normally how then it gets put into the 2022 budget.
Okay. I usually worked with Laura and Infomart to in that process.
Mm-hmm.
The $125,000 in extra revenue, did that come as a result of budgeting? Where did that come from? This is the question. Do we know?
Okay, I'm not seeing an extra,
Well,
in essence, I'm seeing, you're talking about from the budget standpoint
the budget's
or the amendment? I
over
mean,
expenditures. There's $125,000 final budget.
yes, that is not additional revenue. If all of that was spent, and again, that amendment was, all of those, the pond changes were requested and provided to us. That was nothing in there that we made any changes to. So that 125,000, if I'm understanding your question, would have to come from reserves. It wouldn't come from revenue. Now, again, just to be clear, not all of that money was spent. And, and the total budget was amended to, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just trying to get us all on the same page.
Right, yeah. So the total, with that 125,000, the new budget amendment was about 900,000 for ponds.
Right.
But they only spent, I said that department only spent 714,000. So they don't need anything from reserves.
Okay. And the 3,930,000 at the bottom, fund balance as of September 30th, that is all of our reserves together, total that
That's
number?
correct. That's correct.
That can be split into some are for construction,
Capital, emergency,
Yep,
et cetera.
as we split them down. But that's the current total amount.
That's correct.
Drop $235,000.
Right. Okay.
And so this is going to be approved by statute before the end of November, right?
The budget amendment was already approved.
Already approved. So
Correct.
you're sending this out to give us a little further clarification.
Yes, but it was, we wanted to make sure, obviously, it's important you guys track your budget, you look at it very carefully. We wanted to make sure that we weren't throwing any curveballs or causing any confusion. So that was really just a kind of the way of doing it. At the end of the day, again, the statutes require something, so it's not like you couldn't do, or you had to do an amendment because you were at 2.7 and you spent 2.9. So there was definitely going to be an amendment, and this was just what we put together.
And just for me, go over again, I'm looking, and it would be page 8, it would be up one here. I'm looking at the capital outlay boardwalk, $645,000. That amount will eventually be, maybe the wrong terminology, charged to the reserves.
If the committee is comfortable with the schedule that I presented to you, I put that into the reserve, the capital reserve column.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely, that, again, it doesn't have to be. It just seemed, just from, previous discussions, seemed a reasonable place for it.
Yeah, I'm sure that's where we want it. That was our intent to have it. And that was, we're using that special reserve for the boardwalk.
Mhm.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions on this process? Okay, well, Stephen, thank you. I appreciate
No
you
problem.
elucidating that for us. I must admit, I'm a little embarrassed, having been here as long as I have, that I didn't understand exactly how the procedure works.
Well,
Phil, I have a question.
Sure.
And it's in regard to the item guard gate roof. Is that what the total cost was to repair the leaking roof? Seemed to me that we voted and approved a quote for 26,000. Did I miss something?
Scott
Anyway, left from
Charnon,
this.
Pelican Preserve Property Manager, that is correct.
Okay, so this, it came from the 26 or 27 to 34?
Would have come out of reserves, yes.
Okay,
But the cost of doing it was $7,000 or $8,000 higher than I thought.
No, wasn't it around 27 and we
Yes.
spent 30?
Yes.
30,
So another 3.
34,
Yeah.
3.
34.
Well, that was the budget amount, but the capital year-to-date actual, correct me if I'm wrong, was 30,903.
903. Yep,
Yeah.
you're right.
Right.
is that it? Okay.
Yes, we
Yes.
overspent, yep. by-
10%.
by 30.
That was due to the amount of plywood
Mhm.
that had to be replaced.
That was
Okay.
damaged under there.
Yeah.
Okay,
It was all dry rotted underneath.
thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
All right, well, thank you, Stephen. I'm going to have the challenge to put some of these budget numbers from you, et cetera, from our own budget. We'll see what we can come up here
Mhm.
and maybe make it a little more
Understandable.
understandable going forward.
Yep.
Because the numbers are, let's face it, the numbers are right.
Mhm.
It's just that how we're going to see them and be able to monitor them more efficiently going forward.
Mhm.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay,
Very good.
not a problem. Let me know if you need anything else, and certainly happy to help in any way, making this, making any changes or doing whatever we can. It's at the end of the day, unless the numbers are understandable, they're useless. So
That's
happy to
right.
help.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
take care, everyone.
Thanks, Stephen. The minutes show that Mr. Schofield joined the meeting at about 2:15.
Thank you. Sorry for being late.
That's understandable. Okay, I was going to reshuffle the agenda a little bit, but I think we can do it just as it's printed. The golf course amendment publicity. Golf cart amendment publicity. My suggestion here is that I think what Teresa has drafted is very good. What I would suggest is that the committee allow Teresa and me and our editor people at the communications committee take this and do what they may need to do in order to put it out, and then have it issued under the PPAC. We have a PPAC
Template?
template. Thank you, Randy. That we can use to put this out. And I would suggest that maybe the committee just give us permission to go ahead and work this. We'll certainly get all the information into it as it's now printed. Does anybody, because I think, 6 or 7 of us sitting here working on the wording of the thing is not going to be time well spent.
You know what I think, Phil.
It's not going to be time well spent. Anybody comment?
No, I thought the wording was perfect and to go just as it is. Just some massaging needs to be done.
Yeah,
I think let them massage it.
I think you let them massage it,
Yeah,
and
that's fine.
what I suspect is that there will be generally on these bulletins that we put out a headline to kind of emphasize what's in the bullet.
Yes.
And then some other things. So I would suggest that we allow the work to be done to make it more well, it's very understandable, but just to make it come through the way we want it to. But I think it's very well done.
Marketability.
Marketability. But it will give us an opportunity that, using our template, our PPAC template, that'll get us out in the community with an announcement, which I think is got a kind of a double thing, because it not only gets the information out, but it also puts PPAC out there, which we can want.
Bill, I have a question.
Sure, Teresa.
I don't know. I'm assuming that the communications committee you're talking about is the PPCA committee, and I don't have a problem with that. I'm just wondering if, who's got the final say if they edit something that we feel should be in there?
Well, what I am suggesting is that you and I have the final say. on
Okay, I'm good with that.
that, Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, definitely. Our process for editing anything, it always passes it back to the people who generated the information for their approval, that it's, going out and saying what we want it to say.
Okay,
Okay.
sure.
Any other questions on that?
I have no objection to do that.
All right. Anything else? No objections? And I'll take it as the consensus of the committee that that's the way we're going to go forward, and we'll get something out. I am now going to shuffle the agenda a little because I want to get to the road maintenance proposal. Have our expert with us. And let me just comment from my perspective is that the information we got about seal coating seems to me changes the game. Both seal coating that we got from Bob Geppert and also the information that Joe picked up at the city. And it would seem to me that at this juncture, we may want to take move our process along very much like the city's process. And that is we will fix roads that need to be completely redone, mill and paved, but we're not gonna top coat stuff. We're not gonna seal coat anything. That's an aesthetic thing, and we'll let the communities take that on, because apparently, unless we do it immediately, it doesn't do any good anyway, or it's potentially is a problem. And that would say to me that if I look at the current thing that Southern has given, or Atlantic Southern has given us, we would do the mill and paving of Avila, which needs it right now, and then we would go forward with that piece, and then as time goes on, if there are other roads that need to have that kind of work done, we would make a decision on those. The number I have for Avila Circle is $104,000 to get that work done. So I invite everybody else's comments. That's just the door that I'm coming out.
I agree with that.
Do you want, please, sir? We'd like to know who you are.
General comment, this is Bob Geppert, live in Monticello. The first numbers I saw for doing that were 65,000.
65,000
For the mill and grind on Avila Circle. They were the first numbers that were proposed. Now, I don't know if they came from a contractor, but that was the first number that hit our vision, and how it got to 100,000.
Was that a dollar amount? Because on this particular thing, it shows the map area shows 65,175 square feet.
Square feet. You're
Oh,
thinking
that's
square
65,000 square feet. I thought it was dollars.
Yeah,
That's square feet.
that's square
Yeah,
feet.
okay, maybe I just misunderstood.
It was 65. It's 65,000 square feet.
Okay.
At least according.
Well, that sounds a lot better.
Yeah.
Did we get I know we got Atlantics, but we have competitive bids?
We do
Were they the
not,
only one?
and that's one of the questions.
Okay.
I think.
Thank you.
Worth raising. Thank you. Do people feel we need to get competitive bids on this?
She wants to say
The
something.
president of Avila's here.
Yeah. Please come, please, yes, come on up, Kathleen, and introduce.
I know. You missed the first conversation.
Introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kathleen Anderson, President in Avila Circle, Pelican Preserve. Thank you for having me here today. I just had a few comments. I too misunderstood. I thought it was 60,000 for the cost, which 104. But when I had taken notes about the seal coating, I thought that that was something that was vital to do, especially, Avila, if we're talking the road completely being done, which is Atlantic Southern mentioned that. And I had spoke to Bob before, if Avila took that on, if it does help, if it's not just an aesthetic, then I would want to know the cost, and I don't know how to go about that. How often, I thought I had in my notes, 3 to 5 years, with 4 being like the medium. But maybe I misunderstood. So you're saying it's probably a static and not something that will help the road stay longer?
Right. We've effectively changed where we're coming from. We thought at first that we were going to seal coat everything. And now we've decided that seal coating everything really doesn't make any sense for us. Or
Right.
at least that seems to be what the experts are telling us.
Okay.
So,
For freshly topped road.
except for a freshly topped road. But I think we're going to leave the seal coating to the individual neighborhoods.
Right.
We got a quote for Avila for seal coating, around 10,000,
Okay.
okay? That was
Yeah.
what the fellow behind you came up with. For instance, in Verona, it's about 8,000.
Yeah, we have quite a bit more.
Yeah, you have more road.
Mhm.
But see, I know this is now aesthetics versus engineering requirements. And yeah, I have residents who like the look of a seal coated road. So we have to consider that also, not just that it's going to maybe make the road last longer.
Mhm.
I think that probably it may, although I'm certainly not in
Mhm.
that position to come up with that. But I still think then if we do think we should seal coat, do we put it on each association?
Mhm.
And then if they don't do it, we have no recourse to go after them to do it,
Mhm.
right? That's there. Whereas if we, as the group, pay for the seal coating, we have the ability to dictate to those associations that they should do the seal coating to be consistent within the community.
I guess to clarify my question, it was more on if there's not going to be seal coating, if the clarification on, if I take it back to my board on Avila doing that, if it's more than just a steady, I mean, because you're looking at 104,000. Avila's been nothing done forever, so now we're at that. To offset that, I was wondering if seal coating helps protect the road once that cost is done. And once the road's milled and redone.
It does, but you won't live to see it.
You're right.
I have a great onset, lived to be 104, so let's be careful here, Bob. Okay.
My feeling is we start mucking around and seal coating. That's going to be a problem from a couple of perspectives. Number one, it apparently doesn't do any good from an engineering point of view. Secondly, we have the problem that a lot of communities have already seal coated. Sometimes, some multiple times. I know my community, we've done it 3 or 4 times. So I think you then get into the problem of, communities saying, well, you're going to seal coat these people's roads, but what are you going to do for me?
Well,
I think we ought to
we don't
stay
have
out
to
of that.
grandfather that in though. With what's passed is passed. If they made that decision, Verona did it too.
Yeah.
But they're coming up right now that they want it done. And to be truthful, I said, hey, we're still working on that on our committee.
Mhm.
If that's the decision of our committee to say, it's your ball game, you got to pay for it. But I still believe in the seal coating. That's my opinion.
And I think the seal coating probably does have some benefit, but our community's 20 years old and the age of roads vary depending on how the communities were developed. So it seems to me that in the case of the villa, it needs to be fixed.
It will.
And we will get it, and we should vote to fix that now. And going forward, we should once again have the experts tell us when a road needs to be fixed. I mean, most of us could go out and see it has potholes, it's deteriorating. But, you take the advice of experts to repair as we need to. And let communities decide if they want to seal coat for aesthetic reasons or whatever benefit. Or in the case of a villa, if we fix the roads and that community decides they want to seal coat it 3 months or 6 months after it's completed, let them make that decision.
And my question for all of you was actually in regard to, it got to this point in Avila, and certainly I'm not an expert on it and we're where we're at, but for the costs like PPAC, CDD, moving forward, even though Mr. Gephardt might not think I'll live long enough to see it, but that aside, I'm joking.
That's in the minutes.
Delete those, strike those. But in all honesty, to make sure it never gets to that point again once the money's invested is what I was trying to say. So I'll thank you for your time. I'm going to sit down now.
Well, can I ask though, we do Avila, do we seal coat it then after we mill and pave it?
No,
No?
I would propose that we don't. To date, if we go back, our procedure had always been when people complained about the road didn't look good, we brought our engineers out, and if the engineers said, doesn't need work, we didn't do the work. And I think that's the way
Monticello's been complaining for years
I-
about their turnabout. The engineers say, no, don't do
I
it.
think that's the process we ought to follow. As Randy said,
Yeah.
depending upon the experts, come out and say, this road needs work, but the work that it needs done is not seal coating. The work that needs done is to be milled and paved. And we should do that as needed.
But Glenn, my last comment on this, and then I will shut up. The communities that want it aesthetically, mine included, we've been doing it.
Yeah.
They should continue doing it. The one factor that's a variable is that nobody does Pelican Reserve Boulevard and nobody does Cypress Grove. And that's a big chunk of money.
Mhm.
So that's the Pandora's box we might open if we started to do it. So
Prado's gonna be in there too.
eventually.
Yeah.
So, okay.
But going back to Randy's comment, I think we need a list of prioritization of roads. Like you're talking about, like Bob, just like we had with the pond bank erosion. This was the one we're gonna work on, but here's the next 3 in order of priority. So we had some planning of when those things were going to be available.
Can you give us some work and some comment on that?
Sure thing. Stan Buckowicz with Atlantic Southern Paving. Some input as far as what specifically? Sorry.
Yeah, Stan, would you be able to tell us what other roads look like they're moving towards this?
Yeah, definitely. Is it Ravenna area up in the northern part? Let me grab my map.
Well, I'm not sure we need it
No, we don't.
specifically today.
Specifically
No.
today, no.
No.
Okay, yeah, I can do that for you at
Yeah,
a later date
yeah.
for sure.
It seems to me that, as part of your work on this project, you could give us, we could ask you for a list of those.
Absolutely.
But my question is, to Randy's point, when do we determine that road is inspected? In the community?
Inspected this year as a result of everything.
Every road?
Yeah.
Every road. They would have, at my request, they did the entire community. And the only one that bear into consideration for Miller Drive was the vehicle. That's it right.
From the
I
engineer.
don't know how often we do it.
And going forward,
Going forward, we should probably be doing it every year.
Yeah.
We should probably have Tetra Tech do that every year.
I didn't hear Bob. Who inspects once a year?
Tetra Tech.
Okay.
Yeah, they don't inspect once a year, but I think we should request that.
Yes.
But they did inspect since August of this year. Specifically, because we were going to do Avila, we ought to do everything that needs it. So they went and checked everything.
Yeah.
Because my HOA is adamant that it should be done, but didn't pass muster of Tetra Tech. I don't know what else to tell them. So,
Mhm.
it didn't rise to that level yet.
This is another situation where I think if we're going to be doing some kind of inspection on a regular basis, that it would be a good idea for us to let the community HOAs know that that's coming up.
Oh, yes. Well,
And so that they can expect that and they can make value judgments about if they want a seal coat or, you know, so that everybody's on the same page as far as what's going to be done in the community
Yeah,
and why it's going to be done
I
in
agree,
the order.
Randy. I think we ought to tell them what policy we're setting.
Yep.
Is, you know, we will do those roads when, from an engineering perspective, they need to be, milled and paved, and that any seal coating, if the community wants it, they're gonna have to do it on their own hook.
I think that's a very fair way to handle it.
Since we're going to do this on a yearly basis, it should now be a budgeted item. So
Yes.
Out of reserves. It's coming out of reserves.
should we do that? If it's going to become a yearly inspection, then it shouldn't be coming out of reserve. It
Well,
should
the
be-
inspection, but the actual mill and
The
paving.
building and paving come
Well,
out
no,
of reserve.
yes, capital.
But shouldn't the inspection be a
Yeah.
yearly?
Yes,
I agree.
I agree with you, Joe. We should budget it.
I just would like to know if there's anything any of you need from Avila at this point in time, any assistance that you need from us. I
Yeah,
will
we need
say that,
$107,000.
Well, I have
Okay.
104. Was I wrong in
Yeah,
writing
no,
104?
yeah.
Right. I will say though, past presidents, and one lives in there, he stated that 3 years ago now, someone came out, engineering and assessed the road, said it needed to be done at that point. I asked him for documentation because I think I spoke to Phil about it and no one knew anything. So I never got it. So, you know, I take that as hearsay. But Bob did, when I reached out to him, he did tell me, I mean, and this firm or whoever, Tetra, they were out almost immediately, you know, going through that. So that's something I learned. But, you know, if you need anything from us, I'll have to talk to you about the 104,000. I don't know, maybe I could take donations. But if I need to be doing
We do
anything,
accept personal checks.
you do? Okay. Yeah, I'll have to hide that from my husband. Also, does this include, if you move forward, the curbing, the gutter curb? The curb, we have broken curb and I had people asking.
Dan?
Why? No. We'll talk. But, so is that something that Avila would pay for? We have broken curb. You know what I mean, where it goes jagged
Dan,
edges?
Are the curbs included in your estimate?
No, he said he
They are
didn't.
not, but it is something that should be done prior to milling. So it should be done by.
It's not,
That's a feedback responsibility.
I agree.
it's not everywhere. And I had a lady, Kathy Kubachani, she fell the other day picking up trash in there on a jagged curb. But it's not all the curbing. And I just, had people asking if Avila
Inspect that. I know when we did the turnovers, that was something we had WCI go back and repair, was broken curbing.
okay.
And that would be a P-PAC responsibility. So we should have the engineer inspect it, determine what needs to be done in contract. to
Okay,
have
it's
that
all-
done.
It's only in certain
Well, that's
areas
because
there.
Stan just said
Like-
we should have that done.
No, the inspection, I said at
Oh.
the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I don't need to,
But right now,
Right now, we
right
need-
now, we've already had that inspection done. It seems to me we have Atlantic give us a price for doing those repairs.
and they're pretty obvious, you know, they're scattered throughout
Yeah.
there, but we finally got trucks to stop parking up there, heavy pickup trucks, all that, you know, that was going on, but it's not everywhere throughout.
We'll get it taken care of.
Thank you.
And
I'll
Kathleen,
try to
before you
write
sit
that
down,
check.
you asked if we needed anything. We have a landscaping committee now.
Yes, I sent
And
you an email.
You have I didn't see it, but you have a border on Cypress Grove.
Uh-huh.
And we might be doing something there. So if you had a volunteer from your committee.
I volunteered. I sent it to you today.
Oh, blessings. Thank you.
Yes, you won't have seen it. You were probably traveling here.
That's all right, John, you can stand.
Thank you. And thank you for asking me.
You're in this chair. You'd be allowed to stand, John, if you want. the minutes show that Mr. Gregg had just joined the meeting at 2:49.
He's got a chair.
Well, it seems to me that what we perhaps need now is a motion to approve. But we probably, well, we don't have a proposal yet from Atlantic, but we need a motion to put in place our policy, which is that we repair as warranted by inspection by the engineers. So we can place that policy, and then we can ask Atlantic Southern to come up with an all-encompassing quote that would cover both the milling and paving and also the curb repairs needed for a villa. Scott, you indicated that at that level, we don't have to go through any special bidding.
That depends on what the final amount is, including the curbing. Have an amount that it would have to be put out the public notice and accept closed bids, but I believe the amount is $130,000. If it's below that, we can still put it out to bid, but we do not have to go through the public bidding process. And that's what was given to the district from Tony Pierce.
I would suggest, but I'm certainly certain. To come up with a bid, and we make a decision on that the next meeting.
Us to be lead that effort from policy and ongoing support. I mean, because this could every year or every other year, we're going to have to form a thing. Does a whole group do it, or do we have an individual on our board that is the lead from that aspect? Policy interface to
we're going to set the policy in place. So the policy, effectively, at least in my view, say what we are going to do is we are going to repair roads on the basis of engineering need every year to inspect and repair. And then each year when we want to do that, Scott will go out and get necessary bids.
Yeah, but I don't understand, maybe it's digressive, but I just think it's a big enough thing that one of us should be a lead from the aspect of I mean, we had, Teresa was a lead for the golf cart, right?
Yeah.
And come up with the wording, the policy and stuff like that. This is a bigger thing than that. With the expenditures and stuff like that. I just think if someone says what to do with the roads, one of us should be the lead. That's my thought.
What you're saying is one of us should draft the policy.
I don't know if it's true. One of us should just be, when someone says something about the roads, we know one of us is the lead on that.
Doug, my thinking is we have an engineer that's going to inspect them. They would do the inspection, give us a report. If there's a road that needs to have something addressed, then somebody from here could go out and visually look at it and confirm the engineers or what we think the engineers told us, and then go from there. I think we need to draft a policy in our group that we will follow from here going forward. I don't know that we have to go out with the engineer and walk all the community.
But even to draft that policy, are we going to do it as a board, or are we going to do it with a smaller group?
Well, I think a smaller group would do a great job drafting the policy and bringing it back for us to review if that would be acceptable to everybody else. I don't know that we could do it real quickly in a meeting.
No, you have to have a lead. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I go with that.
And the way our process works, it can't be a committee. It's got to be
That's
An
right.
individual.
One person.
No, that's why I
involved.
said the person.
one individual.
Yeah.
I'm looking down here.
I thought Doug just volunteered.
I'm looking down here at our engineering expert. Is there anyone volunteer to take on the drafting of this policy?
Well, what does the policy need to say other than the fact that we will have the engineering company inspect the roads once a year and make a determination on what roads need to be repaired? And that way, if a member of the public came up and asked us what was going on, we could just say, or said that their road needed repair or whatever, we could just tell them that we hire an engineering company to inspect the roads once a year, and we move based on their recommendation.
I think you got it, at least.
And we,
My view would be that that's basically what we have to say. I mean, it's, you know.
but the
it's a
seal
very
coat
small-
policy would have to be a part of that document too. The policy for seal coating and stuff like that, that we do not view it's our responsibility, and then it's the HOAs. That would all have to be a part of that.
Yeah,
Are you saying the HOA can't do it on their own and pay for it?
No,
Yes,
I'm
no,
just
we're
saying
saying
that
they have to do it.
they have to do it or it doesn't get done. That's what we're saying.
We're not,
Okay,
gonna-
so you
John-
want to change it now so
No.
that the HOA will always do the seal coating?
right.
That's
That's
what
the
it is
way it's
today.
always been. You say change. That's the way it's always been, John.
Yeah.
Okay,
We're not-
and that's fine. I mean,
we're
I
not-
know our
but it's not
community does that.
documented.
Our
Yes, and so-
community seals it all the time.
So do a lot of the communities.
Most of them-
You
most of
arrived
them
a
do.
little late
Most-
to the
Yeah.
discussion.
So,
Okay.
so
All right,
John,
did I miss also the fact that if your community does its own repairs, the way Tetra Tech designs it, cut the road 2 inches deep and repair it, can that get reimbursed?
No.
Looking at somebody.
No, I don't think so. If you make the decision.
Well,
that
no,
you-
if a cul-de-sac, so we can call an engineer and pay for the engineer,
Tetra Tech.
yes, to come out, inspect the road and say, yeah, you better fix those potholes because people were getting serious car problems.
Then we would pay.
But the yearly inspection we were talking about would be, it should cover that.
Yeah.
The yearly inspection by Tetra Tech should cover what you just said.
and so what we've been talking about is
before you got here.
drawing a distinction
Apologize.
between what we would consider, or the experts would consider, a functional repair or replacement versus a more aesthetic type of work.
But I understand John's point. Let's say an individual HOA thinks that their road needs to be repaired and they hire their own engineer, and the engineer says, yes, it needs to be repaired, disagreeing with Tetra Tech.
Our engineer is the determining factor.
Okay, I mean, I'm good with that, and that would be my point of view, but I just,
All right, so if the HOA wants to repair the road, it's their cost.
yes.
Yeah.
And I would say they'd have the option to have us to have our engineer go look at it, I would assume. And if our engineer says no, then the HOA can get another engineer for a different decision.
that option if we're already doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just wouldn't pay for it if they had their own person come out, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying. I mean,
Well,
look,
there's
some of the HOAs do it on their own.
Okay. And
So
so
we
they-
pay that's
they
fine.
they would
that's
be
fine.
allowed to do.
And we are allowed,
Sure.
well, we've been doing it.
We're
We're
doing
allowed to
it,
do
and
it.
they would allow to continue doing it. So we're not,
So
we're
we
not
budget
changing
for it,
that policy. No.
budget for it.
Effectively, the policy is what it has been for 20 years. We've always said, you get the engineers out there. If the engineer says work has to be done, we'll pay for it. If they don't, you can do it if you want to pay for it yourself.
Doug, going back to your writing a policy, would it be good to have the engineer just tell us what their process is for inspection? We make that part of our policy or make that our policy?
I was gonna say.
I agree. I mean, you worded it. We don't need a policy. It's what it is,
Okay,
right?
I'm happy
Well,
with that.
it is, but I think we need to put something, I think we need to actually adopt it as a policy. It has been a policy by default.
Do we actually have policies that are written down and we keep somewhere?
Is that our, no,
No,
it's a road, so it is.
Yeah, it is ours. I think you need a policy, something in writing
I think we need
versus,
something.
versus just, well, it was that way 10 years ago and we just continued to do it the same way. Yeah, I think you need something in writing as a policy, because we're responsible for it.
Right, and we need to publicize that
Right.
policy.
Right.
People need to understand what the policy is.
And I
So we need to
wouldn't,
put something out on it.
and I would include the policy on seal coating too, or whatever you want to call it. That should be, I think it should be a part of it so there's no confusion.
That comment's worthwhile. And that's good for future board references also,
Okay,
documented.
do we have somebody who would be willing to put that together? I'm overwhelmed by the
Enthusiasm?
enthusiasm and positive reaction. Everybody here.
I'll do it, but I'm feeling I also volunteered for something else the last meeting.
What was it?
That's what I'd like to know. I forgot.
Well, you must not be a part of it. You've been heavy at it. I think I'd call this.
It's already fixed.
It's done. It's done.
At our next meeting, Mr. Grego will present us with a
45-page document.
Draft a brief policy
One sentence.
concerning,
It doesn't have to be much than a couple paragraphs.
One paragraph.
We need, who's gonna notify Southern Atlantic about getting those curbing quote proposal? He's gone.
He wasn't too happy.
Scott will do that.
Scott will do it. Thank you, Scott.
He did.
So we can get Avila Road fixed.
Yeah. Let me ask, you want to title this policy for HOA's responsibility for street repair? How do you want to?
I'd say Pete Back's responsibility.
Responsibility for street repairs.
Like, not including the code. Once a year with the Gateway District Engineering firm, Tetra Tech. They'll give us a list of prioritization of the ponds.
I mean, do we really?
You should write it up. You know
I'm
what
an engineer. I'm not a good writer.
Why?
I'm not good.
What is that going to cost us on a yearly basis with Tetra Tech?
What would it cost, Bob? You just did it. Nothing.
Nothing? Okay. No, with Tetra Tech coming out. What?
There's a line item for engineering in our budget.
Okay.
And if we exceed that, then they charge us incremental.
Or we write that.
Yeah. No.
Okay. We will continue. Okay, now we have the one that's really gonna be fun. Back to the trap gate. I would ask Mr. Schofield to present his reasoning on the trap gate, and then we will make a decision of where we want to go.
Thank you. My comment when Scott said he was going to get it operational was I thought we should bring it here and just discuss it rather than just starting it up for a number of reasons. First of all, we've had a 2.5-month test period that we didn't design or prepare for to see how it operated or didn't operate, what issues may have developed or didn't develop. And secondly, we have the issue of vehicles that are going to be coming in to the community for the upgrading of our amenities. And my thinking was, first of all, how would the residents feel about back into service? And also secondary, what would the traffic patterns be like with trucks coming and going on a I guess a fairly regular basis? So I did some checking with people and I just casually asked people, have you missed it? Has anybody heard of any vandalism? And I haven't met anybody that said they missed that operating. Most people said, my God, I'm glad I didn't have to do it. It's eliminated traffic flow, traffic patterns. It's eliminated going from one lane to the other lane to try to get the guard or the guest gate, which has been a problem. So my feeling from all the residents, and I will say all the residents I talked to, was they don't want to see the trap gate go operational. I had an opportunity to talk with the security committee the other day concerning mutual interest with the landscaping group. And I asked Dean about it, and Dean's comment was he sure wouldn't support the trap gate. And he wrote a little comment to me about that. But he said, you want me to check with my committee? And I said, absolutely. I mean, one word is an individual's opinion. But they came back and they said, our safety and security work group members agree we should keep the trap gate operational, but in standby mode should it need to be reactivated until in the future. If the first gate doesn't work, we have that gate to back us up. The comment that he wrote to me was, I never did like the way the trap gate functioned and haven't seen any similar gates at other communities other than to support keeping it, and I'd support keeping it functional but not operational unless it proves to be a problem in the future. And he said for me he gave me permission to read that to you. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been brought it to you. But I don't see what it does. We don't have a gated community. The folks down at City Hall that I've been working with have a nickname for our front gate, and that is the Feel Good Comfort Gate. I try to tell people that we have a controlled entrance and we try to control who's coming and going. But I don't see that the trap gate has done much to deter anything, and I don't think we have a real serious vandalism problem to begin with. And I will say that the one person that has pretty much always supported having it is sitting here today, and he was part of our meeting trying to communicate or develop our organizations better. And Bob, I have no clue what you'll say. I didn't prep you as a lawyer would normally do, but in our conversation with Dean, Bob didn't even jump up and say, we have to keep it. I just don't think we need to have it. I think it creates an issue. I know it doesn't, and John, in this case, he said, so it adds a few seconds. It's not much, but it's just an inconvenience. And there are breakdowns with it. People hit it. People do get stuck there. And if we just have it so we can use it if we need it, I think that satisfies us. I don't think we need it for anything anymore. I think the community has grown tremendously. The issues that were there years ago don't exist anymore. If somebody wants to come into a gated community, they got many more gated communities to pick from down the road from us. We're not the only one out there by ourselves anymore. So I don't see that it serves any real purpose.
Okay, do we have any other comments?
Well, Joe, I can appreciate your comments. But I want to avoid tailgating. That was the purpose of that second gate. And it only takes one tailgate incident where some idiot comes through there and breaks into a house, God forbid, or does something else. That it is that to prevent tailgating. And that's all I'll say. I know you can say, I've talked to people who said that they do like to have the second gate. All right. So, we certainly didn't take a vote as a committee on it, but that's my opinion.
We
I
did.
believe.
Two months
Well,
ago, we took a vote
We took a vote and it was concluded to
Right.
keep the trap
and
gate.
extend the gate.
And we spent the money to do that. That is our responsibility to spend the money to fix it. I don't think we even have the authority to say, whether it should operate or not. We fixed it. That's what we do at PPAC.
Well,
What gives this committee the say? We have an authority on when it operates, when it doesn't operate. That's not our responsibility. We are an advisory committee to the CDD. What would the CDD have to say about when it operates? Nothing, right?
Well, we could ask them, but let me throw a monkey in the.
To answer your question, this committee is the committee that determines whether it should be there or not.
Now,
This
should
is-
it be fixed?
This is the committee that instituted the fixing. That's an academic question. I mean, whether you can spend the money or not. But to your point, Joe, about, 2.5 months without a problem, we've had 13 years and we haven't had another break and theft up the golf course. And I'll just leave it at that. We got 13 years of experience with it. Yeah, I'm pro, and I know you're virulently anti, but that's all I'm going to say about it. From a background point of view, it rests here, whichever way you decide to go. But it is a yearly conversation. Bill and I have been on this for years.
Well, let me throw the other question that's been raised to me. When are we going to put a gate on the sidewalk for people coming in or riding their bicycles in? We have nothing for that. And
It's a different issue.
I don't know what's different.
It's a different issue.
It's not on the agenda. Yeah, right.
Okay,
Bill, I'd like to speak if possible.
Yep, go ahead, Teresa.
I mean, you all know that I'm anti-Trapgate, and I saw some comments that said someone's never seen any traffic backed up to tree line. I have seen traffic backed up to tree line, but rather than be anecdotal, I want to know how much money that has been spent on a trap gate that isn't making a difference.
Well, you're saying it isn't making a difference. That's your opinion, is it not?
But okay, whether it makes a difference or not, how much money has the committee spent on this trap gate?
Wasn't it $800? This particular one.
I think it
Yeah.
was.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that, Randy.
Hang on.
It was $800 the last time, but if you want a detailed breakdown, I can look that up and get it to you.
I'd like to know that for the last year, for the last 5 years.
That may take me a little while longer. And I don't.
I'd like to comment on this if I could. We all know that our roads in Pelican Preserve are public roads. So the best we can do is to try to have a well-controlled access to the community. I think this extra trap gate helps to accomplish that. Now, the fact that we have vandalism or crime per se in the community may have something more to do with the fact that we have security 24 hours. We have 3 different shifts. I would suggest that's probably not the case in many of the communities around us. I don't know that for sure, but I think that might be the case. So I understand that people think it's inconvenient to stop for that extra 2 minutes or whatever it might be, but that's been done by design. Now, currently, there are post orders that are being redlined, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but there are post orders that are being redlined and have, I believe, been sent to Wiser regarding operation at the gate, so that they all understand what the expectations are. I would say that once those come back, this group will have a chance to look at that, and maybe some recommendations could be made to when is this second trap gate going to be operational? Are there times of the day when maybe it doesn't need to be to allow for construction or other trap or something like that? But I mean, if we look at what the expectations are of Wiser and the security group, maybe we can craft something that is going to be more palatable to both sides of this discussion.
Scott, you want to say something about what Wiser, their take on it?
I'll talk about a couple things. I got a compromise for everyone, but we'll see how that flies. As far as Wiser, whether it was Wiser, Securitas, there is really no other community that engages a trap gate. One thing we do have to remind ourselves is we have one entryway and we have 50,000 to 93,000 vehicles going through that area every month. So it's a busy area. Now, I can play both sides of it, but if you look at when the trap gate would serve the most purpose on what we're trying to accomplish, it'd be the same way as we schedule the exit gates. You open them up at 6 a.m., you close them at 6 p.m. That way you take into account the commercial traffic. Getting those larger trucks through the residential gate, which they'll need to get through as we go into construction, and that's probably going to be February and March of 2022. But I do think it serves an important purpose. It's been there. You know, again, we visit this every year, and every year I'm given different instructions. You know, open it, close it, open it. Open it only during busy times. And last year, the committee made a decision to leave it in the hands of the operational people, meaning myself and the security company.
Didn't we keep it open? Traffic was backed up, the guard could be.
Correct.
That's a current
Correct.
policy we have.
Yes, that was what I was instructed. You handle this to maintain the traffic flow. Engage it. If you want to change that and say, okay, do it the same time as you do the exit gates. That way there's no, call by somebody saying, okay, we're getting busy, let's pop it open. And then the owners would know. Because right now, the only thing the owners know is we're trying to reduce traffic on tree line and it's not engaged. If we do it every day, except weekends, like we do the exit gates, that would tell our owners when they can expect to run into the trap gate, and they'd understand that. But again, I'll remind the committee that the decision was made to put it in the people running the operation and letting us handle it. So if we're going back again and revisiting this year after year, it's going to be a little silly. So I think we should adopt one guideline for management to utilize going forward. So that would be my recommendation.
I would agree with Scott, and having it in your hands when the traffic gets heavy, having them put it up, to me is a confusion factor. And I remember very clearly, I said, we should either have it going operational all the time or should be up all the time. Because when the residents don't know if it's operational or not. And I've been in that gate when it hasn't gone down and there's no traffic behind me. And I wonder what in the world's going on. Am I going to make it or not? And I know I specifically said, I just gun my car and hope I don't get hit with it. If it's consistent, I go for consistent. It either works all the time or we have hours where we're set, it's up. Residents know that. They know they don't have to worry about it coming down on them accidentally.
And that's why I would recommend the hours. We standardized hours for the exit gate during what we call high volume for the vendors to keep that traffic flowing out of the community. Well, why don't we do the same thing flowing into the community during those high volume periods? Because out of those 90,000 vehicles that are going to be coming through that gate in February, only 20% of them come at night. And if you're going to have somebody tailgating, it's probably going to be at night. And if it's during the day, they're easily recognized. You have an extra safety deterrent during nighttime hours. Answer your question. There are many communities with 24/7 gatehouses. A lot of the communities only do patrol officers from 7 to 11. We do 24/7. So there are some different measures that we have in place that are available to us that aren't available in other communities. But if you look at the crime statistics, we're at the low end. And most of the issues that happen within Pelican Preserve are circled around those of us who live there. So with that, wait a minute, that was not a joke, that was serious.
Can we keep the conversation, everybody on the same page here? I would merely suggest that we cannot completely eliminate any risk of things happening within the community. So what we are doing is there is no right answer here. We are making a judgment as to how much risk we're willing to take for the community versus, you know, we just have to make a judgment on that. And it seems to me that Scott's proposal of having the trap gate open at the same, or having the trap gate used at the same time that we close the exit gate makes sense to me. There is no right answer.
We're also going to, I would like to also remind the committee that according to our declarations, the association, nor does the CDD guarantee security. We do not operate a security force. We are in control access only. And the only thing the patrol officer can do is see what's going on and call the police, call fire, EMTs. They cannot engage anyone or stop anyone.
Right, Scott, are you saying we are a controlled access community?
Yes,
Isn't that a gate?
yes.
Fine.
And what type of gate is up to the community.
One other thing, I think that for consideration, a comment that Joe made about potential gates along the walkways going into the community. I think we have to be conscious of a potential consequence with that because of pedestrians and bikers and people in golf carts. Now we're going to force them into the traffic. And I think that's probably kind of a dangerous thing to do.
That one comes up every 2 years instead of
Every other month.
Right.
So
We've decided that really wasn't going to be feasible to put a gate there.
So why
Okay.
did you bring it up?
So I thought that's what you brought up
Because there are
earlier.
people that claim there's folks coming into the community that are unwanted through the sidewalk. They ride their bikes in, they walk in. So we have a controlled entrance, but we aren't controlling that. So anybody can come in that way. And how many of them there are, I have no idea. But the residents in the community are confused what we're trying to do. And when we have a controlled gate for vehicles, then they say, why don't we have a controlled gate for walkers and bicyclists? To me,
It's simple.
very, very complicated.
For me,
And-
it's really simple.
Yeah.
We control vehicular traffic coming into the community.
And that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
And anything else, I mean, our fences are easily scaled. You can walk through the preserve to get in the community. I mean, again, it gets back to what the owners were sold and what is reality. They were sold during the sales process. We're a secured community because of the front gate. That is not the case. So again, it's part of education and reinforcement to what we do with the gate and the community. And we can't be all inclusive. So
Education. We need
Yeah.
to communicate
But,
as a P-PAC group, what we really are.
but again, I bring up that if somebody wants to get into Pelican Preserve, they're public roads and they can. According to our post orders and according to legal counsel with the CDD, we cannot stop somebody from coming in, but we can register them, take their license, their plate, and instruct the patrol officer to see exactly where they're going and follow up with them. We have a different measure. But again, this is controlled access. It's not security. And as long as we all understand that, you're going to get pushback from owners. I get pushback from owners, so why can't they come in and out of the back gate, the construction gate? Because it's a construction road and it's going to be used for, you don't understand how many people are going to be upset when that road is closed and we start the construction. Because the amount of people that come through that gate, and you know what? It is not a criminal element. It's our residents. Because I've had the patrol officers sit back there. You watch them drive into Prado and go to one of the communities, pull in a driveway and a garage. If they're pulling into a garage, that's not a criminal element. So again, just food for thought.
When we made the decision 2.5 or 3 months ago to have the gate repaired or to have the repair made, I don't know that we specified.
Whoever's speaking, please speak into your microphone.
When we made the decision 2 or 3 months ago to get the gate repaired, I don't believe we specified once it was repaired, just when it would be in effect. My suggestion is that we allow Scott to go ahead and return the gate to being used at the hours that he has suggested. That is at the low traffic area, low traffic times, that we have no trap gate at the high traffic times. We allow that to happen. And then, as Randy has suggested, when we work on the post orders, see whether there is something else that is going to be suggested by the people working.
That makes sense.
Is that a reasonable compromise at this point?
Yes,
Others?
I'm fine.
I agree. That makes very good sense.
John?
We're
So
repairing
I don't think we need to vote on anything.
No, I don't think so either. No,
Nope.
because we made the decision to allow the traffic.
You made that last year.
We made that,
So-
yeah. We made,
For me, it's business as usual.
yeah,
Nothing changed.
nothing.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
all
Thank you.
right. Thank you, Scott. Everybody, if that is the consensus of the committee, we'll wait to bring this up again next year.
Of course.
Just not the next meeting.
If not the next meeting, right? Okay. Let's move on the agenda. Scott, you're up again. Association manager report. and
All right.
advisor.
Couple updates. First update is, I know all of you want to know where we're at with the boardwalk. Boardwalk is still under construction. We're looking at mid-December for the construction to be completed, but then we'll have to wait for the CO to open it. So I don't have an exact date for you. It is looking like it's going to be later in December though. So I'll keep this committee informed. I know I did a sidebar with Bob Gephardt earlier and we got a change order and for the bollards for $9,200. I would recommend, and I think Bob agrees with this, is we just allow the vendor to complete their work, the concrete threshold between the asphalt and the decking. And then we go back and use a core drill and open up a section and install the bollard by another contractor. Because it shouldn't cost us over $3,000. $9,200 for 2 bollards is a little, I mean, yeah.
So your suggestion is that not a change order.
Correct. Just allow them to do the threshold and any of the finishing work like we did with the bridges, the association or PPAC, in this case PPAC, just hired a different contractor to complete it.
Scott, what was the cost for the engineering? Because was that the fifth change order 4? Was that for the engineering work for the Ballard?
I would have to look at that, but we would have to do the engineering anyway,
But, I mean,
with or without it.
Okay.
Doesn't matter who does the work, because it's under a permit, we'd still have to have an engineering firm go in there and do the work for us. And then we'll just follow the engineering plan. So
So you're convinced that we can do it
cheaper? Yes.
cheaper?
Yeah.
Okay.
$9,200. I priced out the bollards themselves and they're $400 without shipping a piece. I mean, it's a little pricey.
Okay.
So that's where we're at there. We're continuing our work on sidewalk replacement and repairs and grinding. We do have a small area that we're going to tackle along Pelican Preserve Boulevard, one of the entryways to the cart paths throughout the preserve. There's an area that is, the asphalt is basically gone, and we're going to have to cut through the tree roots and put in a little transition area of concrete and then do repairs to the asphalt. The company I've been using does do asphalt repairs on cart paths. And I've also talked to him about aesthetically improving that cart path. We're talking cart path, not road. So I'm going to start working on that project because, as you know, we're going to have a new boardwalk, we have new bridges, and some of the areas along the boardwalk need to be addressed and cleaned up. That work hasn't been done since, well, probably since the developer put in the cart path. So that'll be one area I'm going to be working on. Other than that, unless you have some questions, I don't have anything else.
Any questions of Scott?
Is it a walking path or a cart path?
Both. They're both. Interchangeable, means the same. Depends on what side of the fence you're talking about.
Okay.
Same with the bollards. Depends on what side.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. For there being no questions. Doug, I think
Sure. Can you
you're
put
up.
my note up there, the budget? I'll just give this summary and go. Or I could get some. No, that's no, my note with the topic. Well, I think you all have a copy of it. You can see there that this all comes from Stephen Bloom's data that he showed there. It's about 900,000 for the budget. The actual for 714 and some change, 185,000 we did not spend out of that budget. I think it'll be close to that once they go, but there's 177,000 contracts that we have signed that did not get completed. It's not that the work's going to go against 2021. It's the work will be completed in 2022, but the contracts are already signed.
So will the expenses go into 2021?
No, they will go into 2022. So that 177,000 will go against the carryover 180, and it'll be in the 2022 budget.
Okay, so it'll go against that 185.
Correct.
Okay.
But it will not hit the, I mean, if you want, the question is there $185,000 worth of leeway there for the last minute stuff for other groups because the fact that will not be spent.
Okay.
But the contracts are signed and it will go against 2022. But that's where the carryover.
Got it.
Okay. DBI, which is a company that Aquagenics that does half of our ponds and our conservation area. We just signed a contract with them to do the conservation area, went bankrupt. Okay? Yeah, so I've been working, the group has been working, the Ponds group has been working with Laura and Tony, and netted out. Tony said that we had to give them 30-day notice because they came back, Aquagenics came back and gave us insurance, that somehow they got insurance and stuff so that we can't immediately cancel their contract. And we have to give them 30 days, but we have, and that will be, they've already been given the termination. That will be December 3rd. On December 4th, we already have a plan in place. We're using Solitude to do the conservation area with $6,000 less than what Aquagenics was doing. And another company, Superior Waterways, basically said that they would take the contract that Aquagenics was doing, same terms, same pricing, and complete that. Tony said we did not have to go to the boards for approval because it was an emergency situation because of the bankruptcy, and to maintain our assets, we had to go forward and just inform people on what we were doing. So those things are in place right now. So on December 4th, we will have two new individuals doing the work that Aquagenics was doing. Any questions there?
Good work, and pulling out a tough situation.
Yeah. And we had some vendors that stepped up too.
Yeah.
Littorals on the flowway, this is just informational for you, that the flowway, we all know is maintained, or maybe we don't by CDD, and not the Ponds Group. Their standard, CDD standard, not Pelican Preserve standard, is that residents can request the littorals to be removed. And there was a discussion at the last CDD meeting that we will get a note. They're removing littorals, or the littorals on the flowway banks. We will be able to say yes or no, but basically the standard is the resident can request that. 3 homes have already been requested and the littorals removed on the banks. We are not paying for it. PPAC is not paying for that. And CDD pays for that, and they're using their standard, just so you know. Bob didn't like it, but it is what it is, right? Aerators, just a quick thing. I didn't give you the 2-page color-coded chart. On April 1st, we had 40 aerator ponds that were not functional. We have 1 right now that's not functional. So that total red chart, that half the things look red, there's only 1 now that is red. And that's pond 37. Downspout Initiative, I gave on the last page, I got an error on the dates on the one spreadsheet, but 3-year plan to complete the project. We got contracts for 700. We haven't signed any. We have, go down to the bottom of that chart. We have a budget of 309 for next year for the Downspout Initiative in the approved budget. I broke up the 305 to the left of that is the total for the contracts that I think we could do next year. And then I got another $400,000 budgeted for the next 2 years after that. So it's a 3-year budget of around $700,000. I'm not asking for any approval for that yet. We still have, in the next meeting, I'll bring that approval to be able to issue contracts for the approved budget for 2022. Okay?
Okay.
That's it.
Any questions of Doug?
Yeah.
Would you please, Kathleen, would you please, you need to come up here and reintroduce yourself. Not been very disciplined about that.
Sorry about that. Kathleen Anderson, President in Avila. I'm getting complaints about the pond that borders Pelican and Cypress Grove, that there's an odor that smells like.
Yeah, you're talking about the pond that's not a pond, that's the aeration, or the where the pump, it's
Yes.
sulfur.
Yes,
It's sulfur.
It smells
for that
like
deep
sulfur.
water, I think, isn't that, Bob, isn't that owned by the golf course?
We have nothing.
I can explain.
Well, I know it's
Okay.
deep, the water's deep, and they bring it up, it has sulfur in it, and it smells like rotten eggs.
right in the homes
Oh, yeah,
bordering.
it's,
Yeah,
in
they,
fact, I told,
Remember they're refilling the lake, right?
yeah, When they
Okay.
pump the water up from the deep well, the sulfur comes up with it. But it's not the ponds group, it's not PP, it's not PPAC that has anything to do with that. That was the golf course.
Okay, I'll let them know. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but I mean, my wife puts her hand over her mouth when she
Yeah.
walks down the street.
The
It's really
residents
bad.
there, the residents
bad.
there, when the homes, you know, when they're showing the homes, people have commented on it, so,
It won't change.
okay, thank you. Thank you.
Until we get recycled water.
Then you have a different odor.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay, I'm done.
And you pay for it then.
Pay for the odor then.
Any other questions of Doug or comments on ponds? Okay, Safety and Security Work Group, SSWG is involved with the trap gate, or not the trap gate, I'm sorry, post orders. And they're working on, Randy, where are we again?
Well, so I just made a few different comments that I passed around, but Scott Charnock, he gave quite a bit of discussion relative to Wiser and Securitas in our September meeting. And we had quite a bit of discussion, but it was a rather expedient decision to employ Wiser and accept their bid. And it was all approved, and they started October 28th. So it's my understanding, both Scott and Christopher Santos have given me more of a background relative to the post orders. And it's my understanding that they get reviewed and updated approximately every 2 years. And so they have been given one recently, or prior to their bid on the security contract. And then more recently, they have, Christopher was going to this past Monday, send a redlined update to Wiser's management and expects to get some kind of response back at their earliest convenience. When I asked him what that time frame, he was hoping it was 2 weeks, but in the 2 to 3. Okay.
Scott Charnock, Pelican Preserve Property Manager. Yes, we did meet with Wiser yesterday, and we did provide them the red line document. So they do have it, and they should have it back to us right after the Thanksgiving holiday. So it'll be in plenty of time to present it to the committee in the future after your review.
And so one of the items that, as an example about that would be added to this or amended on the post order would be like the Trapgate incident that we recently went through. Some of the orders would be that the officers would take a lot of pictures, a lot of photos, that any of the video would be saved, and that a police report would be done for every incident so that evidence is available and the responsible party would be, charged to fix the accident that they caused. So it got a little confusing last time because somebody drove around the gate, which affected the timing on that gate. The next car coming through had it come down on their windshield and it broke. So it's a little hard to blame them for that particular accident. But if we have video that's saved, we have pictures of damage, and we have a police report filed, all of that would be evidence to address any particular item. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more things that come up, but once again, I'm mentioning that in the post orders, when we get a chance to look at and review those, we may be able to come up with other suggestions.
Yeah, it's Scott Charnock, Pelican Preserve Property Manager. Yeah, it's been our procedure. This was one of the failings that we had with Securitas, was whenever there's damage to district or association property, we do file a police report. It allows us to go back on the owner if their insurance company does not respond to our requests to make payment on a damaged item. And just so all of you know, our light posts, we've had some insurance payments made last year, but our light posts take anywhere between 10 and 16 weeks to come in. So our 2 light posts that have been that were damaged from car accidents, one on Prado Drive and one out on Tree Line Drive, they're going to be replaced by the end of the month. But without the police reports, it's hard for us to go back, especially when it's outside the camera view. So that's why we do ask the police to come out, file an accident police report, and we do understand that at times it puts our owners in a difficult position when they've had a few discreet libations. But when they drive off the road, hit signs or hit light posts, it could have easily been a person. So that's why we follow that procedure.
Thank you, Star. Randy, anything more?
That's it.
Well, I think we should all give him a hand for getting a compliment for the, for wiser security change.
Yes,
I mean, you gotta bask in a compliment when you get it, because we don't give many
we
compliments.
don't have many compliments, but I was going to ask the question. That was my next question. Have others heard anything other than that was a written comment, but have others heard anything about Wiser? Do people seem to think that they're better, that they indeed, are we getting compliments or not?
In the security world or controlled access world, no news is good news.
I see.
We are going through some growing pains, but those were to be expected. But they really haven't affected the owners. It's comments and, it's just retraining some of the staff or getting them up to speed with how we do things at Pelican. But other than that, that was the first written compliment I've received. So
I've heard people say that the people were a lot more friendly, but I think some of that was Cerritos did them a favor because of when the cancellation of the contract, their people weren't very friendly until the new people took over, which made the new people even look friendlier.
yes. What they gave us the last month of the contract was not our normal crew.
Right.
Yeah.
Was pretty bad, and that
Yeah.
makes, it helps the new people.
I
Yes,
think
it
this
does.
comes under security. I've seen a lot of the police here. Are we requesting extra police
Yes.
or are we paying for it or is it?
We are paying for some extra patrols.
It's in our budget.
It's in our budget. We budgeted for it, and we are paying for it.
But are they doing extra patrols or just, if we didn't request it, they still used to come into the community?
But not as anywhere near as frequently. And further, the safety and security work group, one of the things I was going to mention is looking at all the adjacent communities here and finding out what kind of coverage they have versus what kind of coverage we're getting. We're trying to get an idea of what the city provides in terms of police coverage.
And we don't have that data,
We don't
that
have-
answer.
We don't
It's
have
not
that
data,
yet,
it's an answer.
But the SSWG is working on
They may make a trip through. I see them maybe once a week at the most.
And I gather, have we given them the okay to ticket or not ticket?
We have given them the okay to ticket.
Thought we did.
However, we have difficulty getting them to ticket. They will write warnings, but we have difficulty getting them to actually ticket people. So we're trying to work that issue.
I know that has to do with certain speed limits, but one of the big issues is on going out to your community. Right? I mean, traveling that road, I mean, I've seen some people really speed.
There's been some drunk drivers going down the wrong lanes too.
John, there were, one thing I could mention, I thought it was a little premature, but I will bring it up. Relative to the police presence and so forth. But Christopher Santos told me that he has been working with someone, I believe Nancy, with the safety and security to conduct a study. So those flashing signs that tell you what your speed limit is get moved around to different communities and they collect data more than just what a speed limit is. So at some point in time, they're going to have quite a bit more information, I think, regarding, the issue of speed that is a rather big concern of a lot of residents in the community. So I think before, in upcoming meetings, we'll have more information to share about that, but it's something that's going on right now.
Yeah, and I would add that part of the reason for doing that is to see whether we need to do speed dampening efforts in parts of the community and where that might happen, where most of the speeding is going on.
And what we have learned through those reports is that the rumble strips on Veneto work. So although they're not a big issue, we do know it slows down traffic because that's what they're intended to do. And if you speak to Fort Myers Police Department, they're going to say the use of rumble strips, speed humps, not bumps, but speed humps is the most effective way to control speed within a community. So again, that's what we're trying to have, the facts, and these speed signs will give us some supporting information that we can move ahead.
Scott, we've had those signs for a while at different locations, those speed things that flash at you and stuff. Has that been gathering data?
Yes.
all along?
Yes.
And where does that data go?
We have that data. I know the committee members have it.
The safety committee?
Safety and
Yes.
Security work.
Have
Yes.
that data?
Have that data.
Yeah, they
In fact,
actually run the
they-
reports.
That committee initiated that
Okay.
effort.
What kind of data are they collecting? I didn't think they were capable of that.
Speed.
Speed.
Yeah.
But they record the speed?
Yeah.
They don't,
Yes.
they don't record license plates or anything?
No.
There's
No,
no
Just,
camera.
Just yours.
that's fine.
Just yours.
I don't even know mine is, so I
So
can
you
ask
would
them.
be able to know the average speed, how many people are above a speed?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And that's-
all
That's
those-
what they have now. That's
Right.
why we knew about the rumble
Right,
strips.
about
Yep.
Veneto.
Yes.
And we will, if warranted from those studies, we will put in additional speed dampening things, either rumble strips or perhaps speed humps,
Yeah.
based on what comes out of that review.
There's a number of folks still complaining about those cones there. I think we're looking at getting other rumble strips on
Yes.
the other
we're-
side.
we're
Is there
looking-
a hang up on that?
Yeah, well,
Yes, there is. There's multiple hangups on that, and it's tied to city leadership and issues with the change of the DRI with the construction road turning into an emergency road. And we just don't want to push too hard in certain areas to get everything resolved. It's going to take time, but I'd like you to all know that I've spoken to Dean, who's the chairman of the Safety and Security Work Group, and I am ordering brand new orange cones. So and the reason they're there is to keep the drivers from swerving into oncoming traffic. Because if you stand there and watch, if they're not there, they drive around them. All the golf carts drive down the road and drive up onto the grass and around them.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to maintain safety there. Aesthetically, I agree, but they're there for a purpose. And until such time we can get the permits going again, it just requires a little patience and understanding that we're dealing with city government. So
Would it be cheaper just to put some permanent, they sell permanent
well,
separate dividers there that would look different than the cones. I mean, people might not like them, but they do sell permanent things that attach to the
You
road.
would just probably drill a hole and
Yeah,
put
true.
I know those little ribbon type
Right,
things. that
right.
go-
And
Yeah.
I would think there'd be some legal
And-
issues putting the rumble strips on the wrong side of the road, I'll call it.
If the
well,
rumble strips,
that's why it's going to be permitted by the city.
all right, if the rumble strips are working now there, why do you want them on both sides? You just said they are
To
working.
get rid of the cones.
To get rid of the
cones,
cones.
People drive around.
They
do
drive
them.
around them when they.
I like your idea
When
though.
they can no longer, when they can
Yeah,
no longer,
I do too.
when they no longer.
Permanent little.
Is it a city or a county? I mean, they're county roads, right? Or are they city roads?
City roads.
City roads.
I took my golf cart at full speed over those speed bumps and it doesn't really.
It doesn't hurt the cars.
I know
no,
that.
Cars are less.
Cars are less.
Yes.
That's-
It might be a problem with the bearings on your wheels with a
That-
golf cart, but certainly not a car.
No.
That's why it's called a calming device,
I agree.
not
agree.
an elimination
I
device.
just did a
And our,
test.
and our statistics,
I did
Yes.
that too,
Our
because I
statistics-
was curious.
our statistics indicate that they're effective.
That's wonderful.
Anything further on this?
Nope.
Enough on that. Okay, let's move on to landscape work group, Joe.
Well, I sent a report out. I apologize it was so late, but we had two meetings and they both happened to be the same day, so I was a busy guy one day. But we had a meeting with Bob and Dean to just talk about what we have mutual interests in organizing our committees and utilizing this GIS mapping system. And I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, but there's a whole section in there for landscaping, talking about types of shrubbery, trees. We can add the areas that we're going to have inspected. So there's a lot of opportunity there. It's really quite fascinating what they can do. So that we just
Can
discussed
also
what we
do it
have
with
mutual.
Traffic information too.
Yeah. Dean and I talked about the ability to communicate, have street signs that are going to be visible rather than covered by shrubbery, having the street lights, having trees trimmed around those. So we have some layovers or some mutual stuff there. Secondly, we got a new member of our group who actually responded to the advertisement we sent, or the notice we sent to the President's Council, Richard Rue. Richard's on the Prado board, and he is responsible for landscaping in that section. And he's already had some good ideas for us. But it's in the report. I also added in the report a draft of what we're looking at moving forward. And I'm open to comments and suggestions. If you look at that and see something of a concern or interest, I'd ask you to bring that to my attention. But it's all in the report that you have. And we'll just keep plugging along. Right now, our major goal is to get this request for quote out. And
Request.
we're for a new contract for landscaping. And that'll be a closed bid process. And Scott's involved with that. CDD is really writing the documents. And we'll all have an input to that and move forward. And then we want to get that Prado Drive island finally fixed up. But I have had some compliments from people, even though one person complained, who planted little trees there. I told that person, give Mother Nature some time and she'll dress them up nicely. And I asked her to volunteer for the committee and I haven't heard back.
That's a good way to handle complaints, Joe.
But we have had some very complimentary comments about it, just verbal. People are pleased to see something happening. So that would be our two major goals immediately, and then getting ourselves organized with these other things concurrently.
Now, Joe, I'd just like to comment, the current process is Scott and he sends me the invoices to approve,
Yeah.
mainly through Marescape, because that's our contract for our CDD, Pelican Preserve assets. So I can see that going forward, there might be more involvement with this committee doing that. My question is though, for instance, associations do their own contracts with landscapers, right? Whoever it may be.
Correct.
Will this committee or your committee be involved with any of those associations to assist or provide guidance with their Situate landscape deals?
We will be responsible strictly for CDD.
Okay.
properties. However, we do the plantings of the monuments. So
Yes.
we're going to be involved with these HOAs and condo associations. The letter I put out to the President's Council, I emphasized that and also emphasize the fact that major roads parallel these communities. And projects that we might be having going along in the future would affect them. So I want to have transparency, let these presidents know what we're doing that could affect their community, which would result in comments. So we will certainly want to help and provide information to anybody that's interested.
Okay,
But our
good to know. I just wanted
responsibility is
to
just the major landscaping.
know
on
the
the roads.
perimeters of how this is
No,
going.
they're all responsible for their own community.
The other comment I would make is that the relationship with the vendors, the payment of the vendors, the relationship with the vendors still flows through Scott
Of course.
and Castle. And Joe's committee is truly an advisory committee.
Yeah.
And is going to be coming up with ideas, but that relationship with the vendors is still flows through Castle.
I like that because I've seen these invoices for flowers, mulching. It is not cheap anymore.
No, we're spending a lot of money.
We
And
are.
what I want to do, I've started a spreadsheet and I have to continue to work on it, but I want to be able to coordinate the quote with the job number and with the invoice. Because I've seen, at least to my thought, I like to have I's dotted, T's crossed, and I see what I'll refer to is not complete documentation and coordination and all that stuff.
Well, I've been doing it for a year and a half and working with Scott. I must say that I have great trust in Ameriscape and how they do their billing. I don't think if they're saying they're putting in 6 pallets of mulch, that they only put in 3, that type of thing. But
Yeah.
it is going to be good to have an oversee over someone else looking at it too.
We want to look at the contracted prices, and there's additional work that they quote on to do that comes up.
Oh, of
And-
course, of
And
course.
that's sometimes not in our contract, but I'm aware of, Scott. I don't think it's in our, I guess it's in our budget, but it's kind of vague. We
Well, what
want
did
to tie that all together.
Just to finish, what did we do with that lightning situation with those trees that were struck more than, that was a big, I don't remember.
Well, we took the trees that were dead out,
Okay,
and we trimmed up some of the shrubs that were in that area. And we're going to determine what trees we might put back in, but our objective is not to replace them with the Washingtonians, which get to be lightning poles as they grow. They're expensive, so we need to find out, well, our goal is to find Florida-friendly plants that we require less maintenance, are less susceptible to drought, and put something in there that's going to look nice, but not the Washingtonians that are there. And I think out of attrition, we'll just kind of let them die out and replace them with something that the people will like. And whether we need to put as many in as there are, I don't know that we need to replace tree for tree either.
well, there was an interesting article about Florida and the usefulness of palm trees. And that really they don't contribute to the carbon reduction, et cetera. So, I
They
know we
look
had.
pretty, the aesthetics are nice.
Well,
that's
yeah,
what
it's
people
Florida,
want.
I agree.
They have, and there's a lot of diseases that are starting to come in to plague palm trees. So that's another thing.
Yeah,
that we need to
replacing
be-
them is not the answer all the time.
No, it is not.
I
And
agree.
the reason we didn't put the royal palms back there at that circle at Prado was because of diseases. And the fellows on my team are looking at those other royal palms in that area. And they don't have a whole lot of, they don't feel comfortable about those trees going forward. They
Mhm.
think in a matter of time, we're going to have issues with them. So
Very
we don't want to replace them with that type of stuff.
Understood.
And
Thank you.
Scott's got a lot more to add.
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
I think as we move ahead and we have additional committees, I think this group has to realize how the committees are going to be structured and how they're going to work with the management team. I do hear from this group and other groups that we want to save money. I'm going to eliminate this expense. you're really not going to eliminate any expenses whatsoever. In fact, over the next 10 years, you're going to be increasing your expenses, especially when it comes to landscaping. All you're doing is moving dollars from some plants and spending more money in others. But our plant material right now is over 12 years old. And if you've been around Florida enough, you know that what the developer plants and then what's going to survive are two different things. And a lot of our plant material is old. It has been what we've been doing since I've been here, and I've been here over 3.5 years, is because of our limited funds, I've been removing more plants than I've been replacing. And that's just the nature of the beast. But again, until we have a landscape plan for the future in place, it doesn't make any sense to just replace plants with plants.
I agree.
In many areas, I'm removing plants and putting in turf because the plants are not surviving. So I think we need to keep that in mind. And, you know, as Phil mentioned about the relationship with the vendors, we're going to have to be keenly aware as we move forward on how the committees work with the vendors. If the committee is going to assume operational control over what management does, then the vendors need to know that. They cannot serve, you know, 5 or 6 masters and then be ultimately responsible to the property manager. We're going to have to think through what Joe has proposed and create a timeline. If the intent is to eliminate payroll expenses, and keep one thing in mind, how everything is paid for is either the right pocket or the left pocket. It's either through tax dollars or through association fees. There's contractual agreements in place. So this is going to have to be planned on and worked through in the next several months for the benefit of the community and for organizational structure. Because my concern is not with the change. Change is good, but are we asking our owners to do full-time jobs? And with committees, in some cases, are doing full-time jobs and boards are doing full-time jobs, we're seeing that they went forward and now they're going back because they want to enjoy their retirement. They're in volunteer roles. So again, whether part of my pay is paid through the CDD for my work or it's paid through the association, contractually, that's not going to go away. So it's who's going to be paying for it as we go forward and how are we going to be structured. So the ponds group was developed out of the need and the lack of response from the developer. And that's where they have been in place for years, and they've been running and they've been doing very good. I mean, look at our ponds compared to the rest of Gateway. If we take the same model and we move it into other committees, it can be done. But what is the time commitment going to be made upon those committee members that we're responsible for a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operation? And are they going to be available Christmas Day?
Well, I don't
Or
think,
at night.
Scott,
So-
I don't think there's any intent
No,
to have that kind of operational control shifted.
but I'm just responding to the goals that were set with some of the committees as we go forward. And all I'm requesting, no matter what the end result is a timeline. And I need that timeline so not only do I work with my vendors, but I can also work with my human resources with my team.
Well,
Yes.
if,
I was gonna say one thing about,
Yeah.
like you said, the Ponds Group has been there for a long time.
Mhm.
And Bob did a great job starting in and stuff like that. I mean, we do we have all the contracts. We control all the contracts, all the vendor relationships, all that's done by the Ponds Group. But
Correct.
that's why we need 29 volunteers in the group.
Right.
It's not just 2 or 3 of us, there's 29.
Right. But now that the discussion is going that direction with some of the groups, I just want this group to know
And it-
that that is an entirely different animal. And now you're running a business for the committee. And is that something that you want to get into?
Well,
And I think it can complement what management is doing with the set of eyes through the community. But I don't know if you want to go into,
No, but if you attended the PPCA budget meeting 2 weeks ago, change is coming in our community
oh yeah,
with whether we talk about how it's going to be run, et cetera. So there's going to be changes in our community.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we can tie this in with that too. Because whether it happens or not, you may be working for Pelican Preserve CA in 6 months from now. Who knows?
Yeah.
The way things are going with how they're structuring.
oh yeah,
And we have to, as a committee here, work with that to make sure that we're on the same page as them.
The same
So
strategy.
we need,
Yeah,
we need,
that's right.
we
You
need
have to
to
have a
be
strategy. How
prepared,
we're
we
gonna
need to
operate.
be prepared for the unknown. And the landscaping committee needs to be active, involved, and engaged in knowing what we're spending, how we're spending, that the projects are being done right, that we understand the community and what the needs are. Our slogan is less is best, and that's kind of just a quote, but Ameriscape has done a landscaping job. And
No, change is coming. I agree. And,
we
we're going to have
need to be smarter in what we're planting. Scott has not planted tree for tree like has been a policy at different levels in the community. Our goal is certainly not to plant tree for tree, but to plant wiser, smarter, better shrubbery and trees. And quite honestly, try to convert high maintenance shrubbery and landscaping to lower maintenance. And it's going to take a long time. I've told Scott, we need a year to just get our feet on the ground for this thing. So there's a time schedule.
but again, the reason I bring that up is because when committees are formed and you have a plan in mind, many times we don't have a timetable set up of when these activities are going to take place. So then there's communication that may occur or may not occur, and then we get ourselves into difficult situations.
we'll monitor.
And you're correct. Times are changing. But my discussion with all of you is we have some contractual agreements, and the O&M agreement that we just modified 2 years ago is now in question, and that is with the PPCA, which I also work for. So we're going to need to make sure that we partner with that group to let them know what the end game is, so they have an understanding, so they can prepare for all the operational changes and what the committees are specifically doing. Because I think Phil knows this. I mean, every committee the PPCA has a charter, and they have specific duties and where those duties end and when they start. And that just keeps everybody on the same page. So as we develop these committees and we go forward, we need to keep that in mind. That's my only point.
All right, I have a question regarding the landscaping committee.
Yeah.
All right, you made comments regarding some of the monument areas are looking good.
I didn't say they were looking good. I said we have responsibility for them.
What do you, I mean, a lot of the communities do their own. Are you aware of that?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, but do you know which ones are? I mean, like, Ameriscape isn't in doing, I mean, they'll do certain things on the monuments, But
We haven't discussed that yet with the committee. So he does not know, but Ameriscape and I know.
all right, I'll go one other step. What about all the cul-de-sacs?
Same thing.
Same
I mean,
thing.
you have trees that are being dead. You have many issues in the cul-de-sac. And I know for one thing, Portofino's tired of paying for a lot of the dead trees and landscaping of the trees that are part of Ameriscape.
Well, and that's where some things have to be worked out because some of the neighborhoods do their own plant material and have taken over the maintenance of those cul-de-sacs.
Because it hasn't been done very well by Ameriscape.
Well, and again, that's a different story from what I have heard and what I'm aware of is my understanding is, and as we recall, when I first started here, when we started to get into replacement of plant material and modifications with the monuments, if they wanted to go over, $1,000, well, that was up to the neighborhood association and they were responsible for that plant material. So I'm not sure on how your community got to that point. I do
We
know
don't
that.
mind doing
Yeah.
the monument area.
Right.
That's an entrance and we like it.
Yeah.
But it's getting to the point with the cul-de-sacs, it's gonna get very expensive. They need to be looked at.
Well,
John,
and
John,
again, if the neighborhoods have been maintaining those because they weren't happy with the plant material, the service, and they took it over, we're talking two different things
So
now.
wait a minute, you're saying if the neighborhoods start trying to keep it decent, Ameriscape said to hell with it.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that some of the neighborhoods specifically do their own work.
Because it hadn't been done well by the landscaper, which is the
The landscaper.
responsibility of not the neighborhood.
John, Ameriscape is going to do a landscaping job within means of financial means. If a community wants to make it nicer or do something on their own, they can do it. As I recall,
If a dead tree's there, what do you do?
I contacted CDD in Verona.
Yeah.
With Chris Santos.
Yeah.
They put in a quote got a quote from Ameriscape and they paid for it.
right.
Yeah.
That's how the
Right.
process is.
I mean,
It's always been
that's
that
what
way.
we do. I
There's
mean,
nothing
that's
changed.
how we do it because Ameriscape does not replace plants until they're instructed to do
Through a
so
work
with a
order,
proposal and a
Right.
work order.
And we have in the past, as I recall, and I'm open to be corrected. I know we've done some landscaping on the cul-de-sac and we've told that local HOA, this is what the initial, or we set a price. We said, we'll give you X number of bucks, period. And they wanted to do a lot more and we just told them that's up to them to do.
Did
And
they
I
get
think-
reimbursed by what you told them?
And
What
not
they
I
did,
No, we didn't have a landscaping
No.
committee. That's what P-PAC told them. It was Nancy Hall's committee.
yeah, what PPAC did was the amount over was billed to the neighborhood association.
Yeah.
The original $1,000 that was approved by this committee was invoiced directly to PPAC and paid through the O&M budget.
And John, I think you're jumping way ahead, but I think something that we would look at is down the pike, say, hey, we're going to put $500 into your monument. If you want to do more than that, you're free to do it. We'll
That's
give
fine.
you $500 and you're on your own. But then you take care of it. And if you have a cul-de-sac and we give you $1,000 once in a while to keep it as CDD controlled property, if you want to do more, you do what you want. And we haven't gotten to that point yet. That's so far in the future at the moment.
Well, actually, that's how some of the neighborhoods are working now.
It is how
But
it's-
we
that's how
haven't
it's
even
working.
reviewed that with
We've
the
had very
committee.
few people come to our group, as I recall, and say, will you do our cul-de-sac? Nancy Hall's the one I remember most predominantly, and I don't remember another one really doing that.
So there's a process in place to have it done.
Yeah, there is.
And Karina did it with all three monuments. They upgraded all of their plant material in their monuments and they take care of that plant material with the upgrade.
Yeah.
Is the cul-de-sacs, are they all the same
the way, I thought some of them were different. You know, you got P-PAC, you got CDD, you got probably, the
No.
HOA. Yeah,
No,
each
they're-
neighborhood's different, isn't it?
No. They, except for a couple areas, everything is owned by the CDD
And not P-PAC, but.
and not, well,
Right.
P-PAC.
Well, I mean, we
We-
don't have it in our budget for them, do we? The P-PAC budget?
not to replace or upgrade plant material, but as it falls in line with our plant replacement budget.
Yeah.
You know, the committee has always allocated $1,000 for those cul-de-sacs when they want to change out plant material. Beyond that, that was left up to the individual neighborhoods. Now, we haven't gotten a request except recently for that plant material to be changed out. But again, it can be.
But you have a map. I sent everybody here a map of what designated areas. You'll find in Matarita, there's a number of spots that are controlled by the community association.
Right. It's,
And the fence line is controlled by the community association. Tree Line Avenue from the firehouse down roughly is controlled by the community association. And they have to cover that out of their expenses and, you know,
And the
What-
park in Aviano, that large park area
yeah.
on the northern side of the community,
What we re-
that's owned by PPCA.
What we really have is a landscaping program that's been going on for 20 years. And other than the management company basically handling it, I would recall my experience on P-PAC. We've just kind of said, okay, there's a price, and we pretty much have approved it. We have never gotten into the nitty gritty. We've never taken control and looked at what's going on. So the landscaper makes a suggestion, we're fine with it. But we need to get beyond just having landscapers making decisions for us on our landscaping, because there's more to it. You talk to the horticulturists, the professionals, there's a lot more to be engaged in this process than just letting a contractor come in and put stuff in or take stuff out. And that's very, very simplifying it. Ameriscape is a fine landscaping company. They use a different one over in Gateway. They're all fine landscaping companies. But if you talk to an arborist, and the CDD had an arborist come in a couple months ago, and the conversation and discussion and presentation he made, it's a whole different light. I mean, he talked about trees that are going to cost thousands of dollars to fix today. And he said, had somebody in my position come in here, there's a twig that would have been this big, we would have gone clip and thrown it in the trash can. Now you got $1,000 job to take it out. We've got that in Pelican Preserve in many places.
But it gets back to
So-
one, still gets back to one item. And if you look at funding and how we do funding, and landscape is a big number, granted. But we're dealing with old landscaping.
Yeah.
And we're dealing with replacements. And as long as our budget remains flat in those areas, and the same thing happened with the PPCA, we remain flat. I can't do projects for that. All I can do is pop out plants and put in basic planting material, and nothing that's going to give that wow factor to our residents. Because
Scott,
we haven't funded it.
You know,
one thing you mentioned was with the money, and the prices aren't going to change. Our goal for our committee is to try to reduce the costs and save money, and then put that towards taking care of these issues that are cropped up over the years. It's going to take a while to do that. But yeah, we really want to have an involvement in what we're being advised to plant. We don't want to be just putting stuff in. We want to be selective. We want to be more cost efficient. We want to save money in our budget. How we go about accomplishing that's going to be very difficult, but we believe it can be done. And we have a horticulturist, we got a nurseryman. They know prices. They know what works in different areas, what should be planted in different areas. And this is not the job of a landscaping company. Landscaping companies deal with a couple of suppliers, and they have their standard contractor type plants that they put in. We want to be better than that. And that's what we're leaning to. Scott's going to be
Well,
a
I
big
think-
part of this.
I think we,
If I could just make a quick comment. We were able to employ, professionals and get expert opinion on a lot of things. Tetra Tech is one example and so forth. Maybe we ought to give some more consideration to what Scott is talking about and think about like a landscape architect.
well,
Absolutely.
this is what Joe's committee.
Well, okay. I know that some of these landscape guys who own nurseries or that type of thing, but I don't know that they're actually
The
an
fellow that came
architect.
into a CDD had no investment in anything. He was a consultant. He didn't own a nursery. He didn't sell trees. He
Okay.
didn't trim trees. He's simply a consultant. It's going to cost money. We don't have that money. We have never put money in our budget for that.
Okay.
These are things that we're going to have to get into, and it's not going to happen this year. We've already cast our budget. So
Sure.
this year, we're going to just use that budget up. What I put in my goals here is to see where we can save money in this year's budget and forward that for next year, like the Ponds Group has taken money from one year and not spent it and had it for the next year. I'm hoping to do that. We've got to develop this thing. And landscaping is critical. We have, I estimate, Scott, I think it's $1 million. The budget itself is 750,000, not counting irrigation.
Yeah.
And then we have other contracts that come up. Trees get blown out of the because of lightning.
Yeah.
That's not in the budget necessarily. So it's a big dollar. And as one of the fellows on our committee has said, if it's green, people drive by it and they're happy. They don't have a clue what really is in the ground. So we need to
Well, I would
get our volunteers.
How many people are on your committee?
Right now, there's 4 of us.
I would commend you on getting some of these volunteers that have a lot of experience with this, because I know
There are
that
some volunteers that have some very good landscaping experience.
exactly.
I have, John,
And
I have one guy who's not only a graduate mechanical engineer, he's a graduate horticulturist.
No, I'm
He's
saying
on
we
our
do
committee.
have, we do have some good expertise here.
We do.
and
There
you know,
are
one
a
of the
lot of everything.
And I think this will be a significant upgrade, because in some cases we've had landscape companies, and if you have this model home, this is the landscaping that you get. And I've had people tell me, well, you've got some plants in full sun that don't like sun that much, and vice versa. Others that like full sun that are in shady areas. So, I think that they're going in the right
We're
direction.
killing us
with
to
getting
death.
this.
I'd like to make-
To Joe's
Can I
point.
make one comment? We have an ACC committee that started under WCI when they were in control of it, and they set up the committee because they didn't want to get involved with it anymore. And now that's under the community association. And one of the things that they have predominantly done in the past, and I don't know what they're doing today, was if something came out, you had to put something in. And that has never been good advice. The contractor threw everything he could to make the community look fully developed at the beginning, and stuff overgrows. Now, I'll give you one example. I took every other shrub out along my house, when I had it painted. And that was really not kosher. The Merscape walked down my side yard recently and said, my God, your plants look beautiful. They're green and they're full. Your neighbors look like they're horrible. What did you do? I said, well, count his and count mine. We need to change the attitude in the community. We need to change the attitude that when you pull something out, you got to put something in. We don't really want to do that in the future. We want to have a landscaping that's going to be sustainable and complementary.
Yeah, well, I think we've had enough for this discussion. I think we know where we're coming from, what Joe's working on, and we'll be hearing more about this, and I'm sure we'll discuss it again. Are there any other questions of Joe?
No.
I'm very, TDD meeting attendance. Glenn, you're going on the 18th.
Yes, I will attend.
Now, there's a meeting, Georgia, on the 9th of December.
It's I think it's second or third is the Thursday, the first Thursday.
Oh, it's the second and third.
I can go on the 16th, December 16th, which is the one that,
Is there one December 16th?
is there,
December 2nd and the 6th. We don't know about the 16th yet. We'll find out.
But I'm available if there is one.
Okay.
On
Someone
the
do,
second, I'm out of town.
can somebody do the second?
I can do the second.
Second, okay, is Joe, and if we have one on the 16th, Doug, you can do it.
Yep, I can do.
All right. Committee member requests and audience comments. Somebody in the audience wanted to make a comment?
Oh, no, I just drove Kathy.
Oh, okay.
I just drove,
Oh, I thought you,
I'm the driver.
I thought you. Okay.
She's also Carol Penko. So
Yeah.
I would just like to make one comment. Okay, then I'll let you go, or I'll go.
yeah, sure.
Kathleen Anderson, President of ILA. So I'd like to thank you today, but I'd also like to say that, referring back to the landscape, Scott is faced with things when he walked in over 3 years ago that I'm sure we are all aware of as far as landscaping, whether it's a Meriscape, Mainscape, Greenscape, whoever. I believe that I've learned through my experience, checks and balances. My personal belief is that there's money there. And I just had a project with our landscape company that we were going to be charged $17,000 in mulch. But in the agreement that no one had read, the mulch agreement was $5,000. Nothing has changed, only one thing has changed. New homeowners, they put in courtyards, they put in sidewalks, and we've put in different sodden areas and taken out dead plants. So 27 bags a home will be just fine. The problem is checks and balances. If you get sod delivered, and it's all delivered at once in our area on pallets, well, who's accounting for 27 bags times 96 homes? Who's doing that? Who's going over, counting and signing that off? Because anyone can make a mistake. I make a deal with Javier. I negotiate something. Javier's not out there accounting for those, that amount of bags is delivered per the price, or that at the end of the day, that those bags that are not used are going to be reimbursed. So that's just a point I have on it. And also the overspraying at the corner of Cypress and Pelican Preserve that killed plantings 3 different times, 2 years before you were here, because they were sprayed on a windy day. That should stop. That's all I have. Thanks.
Okay, any other comments? Any comments by the board? I just want to mention, for some of you who have not met him, Gary Rollins over here.
Microphone, please.
Gary Rollins over here, who you've not met, is the temporary
correct.
temporary district manager.
They call me interim.
Yeah, interim sounds better, doesn't it?
Interim district manager, who will be
Coming
with
off
us.
injured reserve, yes,
Okay, who will be with us until a permanent
correct.
district manager.
Yeah,
is
that's
found.
part of our charge, just to help with that process.
Okay. So.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's
thank
Gary,
you.
good to
Nice
have
to
you
meet
with
you all.
us. Okay, anything else?
Just a reminder that when we do projects like the boardwalk, like the work that we need to add at least a 10% contingency in there. The roof was 10% more, the boardwalk will end up
Yes.
being 10% more, but we never for difference in the, I'm just saying going forward, we should add a contingency.
Yep.
We'll all remember that except John.
You don't remember what committee he's on.
Did I volunteer for anything?
Yeah, you volunteer for something, but don't remember.
I like that. Okay, the next meeting will be, December 9th.
December 9th.
December 9th. I'll adjourn the meeting.
I'll adjourn. Doug, I'll second.
I'll third.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
I'm taking memory pills.
Are you?
Ryan.